as I do my best to answer a puzzler that someone sent me in a comment for one of the YouTube videos that I did a year and a half ago or so. And the question was, what do you do to replace front wheels on the pony truck or the front trucks of a steam engine that have been broken or have one of the flanges, piece busted off of that? And I got to thinking, what would I do? I know what I have done, but are there other ways to do repairs on such a critter? And first of all, I think, just to state the obvious, with these front trucks, they're not usually fixed by some sort of a screw nut kind of a combination. It's usually a rivet. So if you want to replace the whole thing, obviously you can buy a replacement pony truck or front trucks for your steam engines, but then you also have to figure out, how am I going to reattach this? How easy, how hard is it going to be? You're going to need to take the crosshead guides off, potentially even do more disassembly to get this piece off, and then to reattach it, obviously reversing everything. So it's not necessarily a super simple kind of repair, or is it? That's the question I had. In front of us here is a busted up front truck. Now this came off of a 322 Hudson. This is part of the Inheritance series that I did. I don't forget if you've seen the several episodes about an entire set, including documents and accessories that I managed to get from a gentleman down south, and he said it had been his father's, and there were some things about it that were pretty cool. It was neat to see all that together, but some of the equipment was in rough shape. The engine needed a lot of help to be operational again. And one of the many things I did was replaced the front truck. Now, obviously in this case, I replaced it. I got a different attachment, and just replaced the whole thing. But did I have to do that? No. There are alternatives. And so here's a couple ideas. They have pros and cons to each. We've already discussed replacing the whole thing, the pros and cons of that. What if you just want to somehow pull this wheel off and put a new one on? Because the wheels on the front, is, to the best of my knowledge, I don't know of any exception to this, are the wheels that you find on pretty much every freight car. They're all the same. They're interchangeable. So if you had an axle, you could pull the plastic wheel off, or somewhere get a single wheel, and in theory you could pull this one off. Now what they did with these is they pinged on the ends, or they flattened the ends of this shaft, the axle, to keep the wheels from coming off. So to get one of these off, you're going to need to somehow remove the flattened section of the axle. You could use a Dremel tool with a cutting wheel. You could use some other type of grinding way to remove that. But here's some of the dilemmas that you run into. If you're not able to get this off in somewhat of a quick fashion, you're going to heat this axle up a lot, and you're going to, these are plastic, so if this axle gets hot, you're going to melt the inside of the wheel. Now the one you're taking off, that's maybe not a big deal, but what about the one you're not taking off? Because heat transfers through the axle. So that's one dilemma I thought about. The other dilemma I thought about is when you go to reattach, if you've cut off this material on the end, and using this as an example, I don't know how easy it is to see, that amount there is all of the excess material on this axle. That's as much extra wiggle room as there is. So once that much is cut off, you've got this tiny amount, 1/16 or so of material left over. So you put the new wheel on, and now you've got to again ping or somehow flatten out the end of the axle to get your wheel to stay on. So is there enough material to do that? If the axle is shortened by that much, will that lead to any issues with travel the truck around corners and through radiuses. Shouldn't, but those are things I think about. Another thing I thought was, what if you had a nail that was, really close to the same size and maybe a little bit longer? Couldn't you just, cut the end off, pull the old axle out, throw that in the trash, put your new axle in, thread it through the existing wheel, through the new wheel, flatten off one end if you're using a nail again, and bada bing, bada boom. So that's a possibility. Now this is a 3D nail in terms of size, and actually has dimensions on the side of here. I use my calipers to try to figure out the gauge difference between this nail and the axle. The axle on here is 0.092 to 93 inches, and this is 0.086. So it's a little bit smaller. It would allow a lot more play, because that amount of diameter difference is going to mean you're going to have a lot more play in the wheels and in the overall assembly because of it, in the the play in the axle journal box area. So getting an alternative axle that's the right size would certainly be important to do. So in my case, this is not a viable option because this nail's not that much longer and it's not big enough. But I thought it'd be worth a try. So now what? Well, the other thing I thought about is, what about using some JB Weld? What if you put some sort of a temporary bridge across the back, maybe a piece of tape, and then you just kind of filled in the best you could with some JB Weld, and then once it's set, came back, pulled the tape off, and kind of sanded and contoured that JB Weld to fill in the missing material. That might work. Another idea was hot glue. Could you take a hot glue gun, again, kind of build that up? That glue sets pretty fast, and it's also pretty simple to trim with a Stanley knife or a sharp X-Acto knife or something. So that would be something else a person could do. They'd come back in once that hot glue is set and trim that off. And the challenge with the hot glue is I'm not sure how smooth of a surface you're going to get, whereas this JB Weld is sandable. So in theory, you could make it really, really smooth when it comes to sanding it down. So with that said, I think I'm going to take a stab at using JB Weld on this this poor little wheel here and just see what happens. I don't know why it wouldn't work, but let's try it and find out. Let's do an experiment. I need to get a bit of tape and then make up some epoxy, and we'll get this going, let it sit, and then I'll bring you back when it's time to contour it and see what kind of results we get. Kind of an experiment. Okay, so there is first pass with the tape. I'm just wondering what happens if I trim this down to a little bit more reasonable size. I already am seeing that having tape like this is probably not going to be a very secure backer. what if I had a piece of plastic like this that I could keep behind that, at least when I'm applying the JB weld. That'll keep it little less flexible, more sturdy. Kinds of challenges here with how do you hold this and so on and so forth. So let's see, what kind of ideas do we have? Something like that would work. So a block of wood happens to be just the right height. Put the plastic there on top of it. Boy, that's working almost like it was supposed to happen that way, huh? That's pretty good. Anyhow, this will give me at least a little bit more of a firm surface to apply my JB weld. So let's go ahead and mix some of this up. I'm only going to make a tiny amount because I'm not going to need much. For those of you that use this stuff, I don't know about you, but I can never seem to make just a little bit. It always seems to be way more than what I need, which is probably what JB Weld wants, because they want to keep selling this stuff. Okay, I think that's mixed pretty well. So what I'm wondering is that I get it on thick enough. That looks really thin. That's the challenge of my little makeshift pattern here. Let's go ahead and add some more. Okay, there's where we're going to leave it for now, and see what it looks like in 24 hours, and whether or not we've got a good enough thickness to actually sand away and still have some left. That's what I can't quite figure out. Based on what I'm seeing here, if that's going to be thick enough. But it's an experiment, and so we'll just see what happens. All right, see you back here in about 12 hours. Well, welcome back. Here we are a mere 24 hours later. Thank you for video editing. For you, it's been a mere blink of an eye. And here I'm going to pull the tape off of our little repair attempt. in here. There, it's perfect. So the next thing I want to do is go ahead and trim this up. I'm just curious, maybe I can, aha, look at that. I'm going to get rid of some of the extra material here. Taking off little bites so that I don't cause any breaks or cracks. There we go. All right, so that gets us a little closer. Now, I have here some different types of sanding apparatus for Dremel tools. You've got a more aggressive wheel like this. You've got sanding pads like this. And of course you've got more grinding wheels, and then you've got cutting wheels. All of these potentially can do some damage. I even see a diamond tip blade down here. So there's two of them. So there's lots of different weapons to choose from here. I think what I'm going to do is stick with something that's a little less aggressive, just because I can't replace the actual plastic if I take it off. So next thing I want to do though is try to set up the Dremel here. Let's see if I can get this. So we're going to go ahead and get this guy set up in such a way that I can see what I'm doing in theory as I'm taking material off, because obviously I don't want to take off too much. So hopefully this will work. All right, let's get this party started. Wow, that's coming off really fast. Wow. I had no idea. Okay, I better slow down here. Now, what surprised me is how quickly the JB Weld came off. Again, this disc is just 240 grit, 220. Oh, I guess it is 180. It is a little more aggressive. So we can see here this flange doesn't quite go as far, as the other ones do, but it's not going to keep the wheel from coming off the track, or I should say it's going to prevent the wheel from coming off the track. There's enough flange there. So that's pretty cool. I was thinking it might be kind of fun to put this on an engine and get some runtime on it. Let's see here. Let's do a little bit of cleanup. Wow. Okay. Whoever invented Q-tips was a genius. Where would we be without them? All right, so again, CRC does a whole lot of different things, including removing the white release that comes off of old flyer plastic. So you can see how nice that looks. I mean, what doesn't this stuff do? I guess you wouldn't want to drink it, but it also removes the caked on buildup that happens on wheels from static electricity, carbon buildup. That's why this is getting so black. There's a fair amount of buildup on these wheels. See if I can scrape some of that off. Now if you put your CRC on there, kind of let it soak, that's another way to get it to come off. But if you're being impatient like I am at the moment, then something that scrapes will work as well. Okay, got a little bit of white residue on the back of the wheels here. Go ahead and take care of that. And let's take some back here. And just for good measure, clean off a little bit of the dirt here. And there we have it. Freshly repaired front pony truck. And for those that don't want to see the repair, we'll just go ahead and do this. Again, it's not perfect, but if you have a broken wheel, this is one thing you can do. You'll get back in operation. So consider it. Again, pros and cons to each one of the ways we discussed. Just to review, you can go ahead and get a new front assembly. Here's our demonstrator. This is an engine that I have yet to repair, but because there's a longer pinged over pin, oftentimes if I've seen repairs where you've got a long bolt screw. I've seen repairs where a person's able to do this again too, a replacement. Sometimes you can just buy the whole cross assembly up front here and replace the whole thing. That's an option. Another option was, as we talked about, replace the axle. So whack off one end of the axle, pull it out, pull your bad wheel off, stick a new one on, put your new axle in, or if you're able to salvage this one, re-smash the end, that would be an option. And last but not least is good old friend JB Weld, and you're off to the races. So I hope you found this interesting, and if you've come across another way to repair this, I'd love to hear what it is. Thank you all for tuning in today, and until next time, take care. God bless. Enjoy those American Flyer trains. Enjoy those American Flyer trains. And if you ever come across, some kind of a repair question, feel free to leave a comment in YouTube, and I do read every comment that comes in. And who knows, maybe it'll turn into a video. All right. Thanks so much.